Aloha, my name is Orville Baldos and I'm an assistant researcher at the Department of Tropical Plant and Soil Sciences at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. Today I would like to share with you my talk titled Bringing the Outdoors Closer to Home, Indoor Use of Native Plants to Increase Public Engagement and Support of Conservation. The use of native plants as ornamentals is gaining popularity both locally and nationally. Aside from aesthetics, consumers are now demanding ornamentals to be water efficient, helping to conserve biodiversity, is non-invasive, and help manage stormwater. In the landscape, ornamentals need to provide additional benefits such as habitat for pollinators and other wildlife, and also to create a sense of place. In Hawaii, the use of native plants have been promoted in the last 28 years. This has been due to the passing of the state law called Act 73, which promotes the use of native plants in state-funded landscaping projects. In 2015, Act 73 was replaced with Act 23315. This revised state law gives a little bit more teeth to the enforcement of the previous law by putting measurable goals such as increasing the native plant footprint by 35% by 2030. Despite active promotion, there are still a number of bottlenecks that hinder widespread use of native plants. These include the lack of availability of native plants in nurseries, the lack of variety available, and the need for more horticultural information, especially maintenance in the landscape. What's also interesting is that in the past 2 decades, there have been little to no development of horticultural selections for landscape and indoor use. There has also been limited partnership between the ornamental horticulture and conservation communities in the state. To fill in the gaps in variety and availability, we established a native ornamental plant research program at UH Manoa. Our focus was to develop underutilized and non-endangered species for use as landscape plants, potted plants, or as an indoor plant. The goals of our research program are to release new native Hawaiian ornamental plant selections to the state's landscape and nursery industry, and to name selections based on provenance. Our pie-in-the-sky goals are to develop island-specific selections which support Act 233, since Act 233 states that whenever possible, landscaping projects should source their plant material within the island or even within an ahupua'a. Another pie-in-the-sky goal is to create a mechanism so that sales of these plants will support conservation and restoration efforts in the state. Plant sales can help raise awareness on conservation issues to a wider audience, especially to those who live in urban areas. For today's talk, I will only focus on our indoor houseplant program. Among the native Hawaiian plants, Alaala Vainui has the most potential to be utilized as an indoor plant. Alaala Vainui are plants that belong to the genus Peperomia. In Hawaii, we have about 25 species, 2 are native, and 23 are endemic. As you can see on the picture on the left side, Alaala Vainui can have varying leaf shapes, sizes, and colors depending on the species, making it potential for selecting plants for home and office use. Another neat thing about Alaala Vainui is that it is a native succulent, and in nature it's usually found growing epiphytically on rocks or on top of trees, and that's a bonus for consumers because it requires less watering. Another benefit of developing Alaala Vainui as an indoor plant is that it is easily propagated from stem and leaf cuttings. So our indoor research program can be divided into 3 areas. First is germplasm collection, second is the development of propagation and horticultural protocols, and third is indoor evaluation. So in order to develop an indoor program, we needed to collect germplasm from across the state. So what we did was we collected propagules from wild and cultivated sources, and then targeted our collections in shady, mesic to wet areas 300 to 1,250 meters above sea level. Our collections were carefully documented, and we took GPS coordinates, photographs, and botanical garden records. Most of the collections that we did were from stem or leaf cuttings. So in the past 4 years, we have collected 44 accessions representing 11 species. 5 of those species have been evaluated or are currently in evaluation. The 5 species we evaluated or are currently in evaluation are the following. The first one is Peperomia blanda, which is the only native Hawaiian peperomia that's available commercially in the state. The others are Peperomia cookiana, Peperomia oahuense, Peperomia mauiensis, and Peperomia sandwicensis. So to increase numbers for evaluation, we developed propagation and horticultural protocols for the 5 species that we identified. We looked into the feasibility of using stem cuttings, leaf cuttings, and stem and leaf cuttings to increase the numbers. We also looked at the benefits of applying rooting hormone on rooting. In addition to macro propagation, we also looked at developing tissue culture protocols for Peperomia sandwicensis and Peperomia mauiensis. So here's just a summary of what we found out in the past 4 years. So we found high percent rooting in P. blanda, P. cookiana, and P. oahuense under these environments. We also saw a benefit to IBA application with P. oahuense. And then with mispropagation, we saw poor rooting and rotting with P. sandwicensis. So with the poor rooting observed in P. sandwicensis under mist, we looked into other means of propagation, like indoor sub-irrigated propagation. So we tried this with Turfis MVP and rooted the plants under LED shop lights. And we found good success with P. sandwicensis and P. mauiensis. We have less rotting and almost 100% rooting under these conditions. In addition, we also found improved root numbers and lengths with IBA application under these conditions. Aside from propagation from cuttings, we also looked into tissue culture protocol development, especially P. sandwicensis and P. mauiensis. Right now, we're currently testing different types of explants, also looking at different sterilization techniques. And then the next step is to develop acclimatization protocols for microcuttings. So the third portion of our research program involved testing the species under different light levels. So we tested them or grew them under 3 different light levels. You have the window, office, and low light levels for 6 months. Then we collected growth parameters every month and also collected mortality. In 2017, we evaluated these 4 species. And the results of that trial indicated that P. sandwicensis was the most tolerant to indoor light levels, making it a potential candidate for indoor use. Another species that we found to be useful for indoor use is P. blanda. However, P. blanda is only successful if they're grown under brighter light conditions, such as close to a window. This year, we're also evaluating Peperomia mauiensis versus Peperomia sandwicensis. And as you can see on the right picture, the plants are still doing well 3 months after install. This is the lowest light level. And aside from the light trialing, we're also distributing a few plants to interested nurseries for trialing so that they can test whether it will fit their nursery program or not. And hopefully in the future, we'll do some market testing. So now let's go back to the pie in the sky goals of our program. Now that the plants are almost ready to be released, I wanted to involve the conservation community so that plants that come out of our program can help support the conservation efforts in the state. So I did a little bit of online research to see how conservation efforts in Hawaii are being supported by sales or donation. One of the websites that popped out was of Brighamia insignis. So Brighamia is a sought-after houseplant in Europe. Some nurseries there have acquired seeds and developed their own breeding programs for indoor use. And since Brighamia is an endangered species, these nurseries are giving back a portion of the sales to the IUCN Hawaiian Plant Specialist Group. So maybe for the peperomias, maybe sell the peperomias and then donate a fixed amount or maybe a % of the sale to conservation. Another website that I saw was selling pins of different plants and animals. And I believe if you buy a particular pin, it would go to a particular organization. So maybe for the peperomias, maybe buy a peperomia and then choose which organization to help. And then another thing that I saw in Laukahi is the Adopt an Ohia Tree program. So this is more of like a subscription basis where you do a sustained donation. So kind of like public radio, maybe do a sustained donation and get a free plant. I'm not sure how to do this though. Maybe the plant nursery needs to buy in. So these are just some ideas that I'm just throwing around for discussion. So if you have any feedback, suggestions, or would like to collaborate, just let me know. I would like to thank my current and former graduate students and then my current and former student help for helping me with maintenance and propagation of the different species that I have. I would like to thank the Magoon Research Station for maintaining our plants and the different organizations that I got permission to get plant material from. And I'd also like to thank my funding sources. And with that, I end my presentation. So if you have any questions, feel free to email me. If you want to know more about our lab, you can visit our lab website. And you can also follow us on our Instagram page, UH Ornamental Hort Lab. Thank you.